A quick intro to this video for context. First of all, I'm just a very cynical person, so I think I've always taken things with a bit of a pinch of salt. And secondly, I have chronic fatigue syndrome, and it's been a long journey and it's an ongoing journey. The fatigue has made me realise that however strong my ambitions may be, it's not possible for me to just push on through. That kind of mindset just doesn't work. I make myself unwell, or I make the fatigue worse. Basically, my body just rebels against that. It forces me to grind to not only an absolute halt, but it will put me back several steps. Anyway, all that being said, I have a real natural bias because of my personal context and situation against a lot of this kind of do more, be more. You've got as many hours in the day as Beyoncé. We all have 24 hours in the day. Don't stop, push harder, be better, keep on trying, just do it. Rhetoric that is all over the internet, and specifically in those kind of areas where people are trying to build a tribe or a community. Coaching, doing self-help, motivational stuff, fitness stuff. There's a lot of that. Keep trying, keep pushing. Find every minute of every day to work that hustle. And personally, I think it's very negative on the whole for most people in the context of their life and the other commitments, issues, illnesses, just the situation, the things that are kind of stacked against them to make them feel like they have to push forward like that. I love the idea that there could be some successful examples of people out there where they don't work that relentlessly and push that hard, but they still have something great to offer, and it might take them longer to get there, but it's going to be rewarding both for them and for the people they affect when it comes down to it at the end. I'm holding on to that hope because I'm holding on to some hope for myself.
There's always hope.
Anyway, not to get too emotional and and overly personal, that was just the context. So I just thought it would be fun to do a kind of critique, because I really enjoy watching critique and reaction videos. This is the kind of thing I'd be feeling when I watch these things. So I just literally went onto YouTube a few days ago, and in the search bar put motivation, and this is just one of the first videos that came up.
Everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die.
Okay, so we start off with quite a strong statement. I think that's fair. Everyone wants, well, no one wants to end up in an awful place if there's a life beyond this one. And before you get to that place, you know, the dying is the scary part, of course. Get the analogy here. Goes on to say that the center of bringing any dream into fruition is self-discipline.
And that's just real. At the center of bringing any dream into fruition is self-discipline.
So we're straight at it with this is going to be hard work, because we've got the fear to get what you want, and then we've also got the get your dreams, the self-discipline. So it's not going to be an easy ride. So I don't know if that's motivating as such in itself. This isn't going to be fun, but you'll get there. Okay, that's fine. Next part.
If you want to be happy, you have to love yourself, which means you have to discipline your behavior.
And so we had first of all, if you want to be happy, you have to love yourself. And I think that's fine. That's a nice message. But then it says, which means you have to discipline your behavior, which again is okay. I mean, maybe you're in danger at that point of not being true to yourself, which then goes against the love yourself bit. But I might be being too picky at this point. But then he says that self-discipline is the center to all material success.
Self-discipline is the center of all material success.
And if you work that backward, you have to have self-discipline in order to love yourself. You have to be happy, you have to love yourself, but you also have to have self-discipline. That's where all material success comes from, which does kind of imply that material success equals happiness, which I would argue is not a very positive message. But once again, maybe I'm being too picky. It's already a lot to think about. Then it gets quite intense. It's already quite intense.
You cannot win the war against the world if you can't win the war against your own mind.
You can't win the war against the world if you don't win the war against your own mind. Then suddenly the violin comes to an abrupt stop and there's a black screen. So we've been hit hard at this point. That's impactful. But what does it really mean? What is this war we've got against the world? The whole world. The world. The war against the world. So it's you against the world. All of the world. It's a big deal. You are at war with the world. It's not going to hold you back. This is war. This is quite intense. We're gearing up for battle at this point. We're not afraid of the pain, of the death that's going to get us to our heaven, because we know that without self-discipline, we can't have material wealth or self-love or happiness. And the world is trying to hold us back, and we are at war. I mean, if you woke up in the morning and got your little ping notification from YouTube, oh, Absolute Motivation's got a new video for you. I mean, what a start to the day. I mean, this is really going to get you going. Come on though. What does it really mean? Because you know what they're not telling you is how to go about these things. I appreciate that it's not claiming to do that. It's just saying it's going to motivate you. So far, it just sounds like a hard old slog and a lot of fighting. I don't know if that's the mindset I want to start my day in. But perhaps just me. Quite like a cup of coffee. Okay, so we're at war. Right, moving on. Because, by the way, war declaration is at 31 seconds. And the war against your own mind is at 34 seconds. You have to win that first. Don't forget. Don't get sidetracked with your war against the world. Don't forget to war with your own mind first. Because if you don't sort that out first, if you don't have that whole war, you're not going to be prepared for the war against the world. So there's quite a lot of fighting ahead of you. Yeah, I'd do some weights or something. Build up a bit of strength. I wouldn't cut out carbs, that's for sure. Because it sounds like it's going to be a marathon, not a sprint. Okay, this bit's fun.
So if you want to have a conviction for something, you have to sign up. Sign up to be inconvenienced.
Okay. There's a lot here. So, we are being told now that if you want to have a conviction for something, you have to sign up.
Sign up.
Sign up.
Sign up.
To be inconvenienced. It's going to be inconvenient for you to have these convictions. So presumably these convictions are kind of going against the grain. It's not your conviction that murder is a bad thing and that bees are a good thing, because most people agree with that, right? So this is an inconvenient conviction that's going to make life more difficult for you. Why are we trying to have these convictions, you may ask? Why are we signing up? Why are we signing a contract with our convictions? I, the aforementioned, pay X amount of inconvenience for a return on my conviction. We are trying to have convictions and passions in order to break through on the inside.
We're trying to find convictions and passion and breakthrough on the inside.
From the inside. I'm pretty sure she says on the inside.
On the inside
of our box. Okay? Remember, this is important. There's a box. The drama. We are signing up to be inconvenienced so that we can have conviction and passion on the inside of our box to break through. Let's say from the inside, right? That makes more sense. Of our box. And that's why we're willing to be inconvenienced, but we have to sign up.
Sign up
for that. Don't forget, this is your decision. You're committing to be inconvenienced because you've got to break through the box. Then, the box doesn't exist.
The box doesn't even exist.
You know, you're not even outside the box. It doesn't exist. But guys, surely this is great news. Like, we no longer need to be inconvenienced. We don't need to have convictions and passions in order to break out, because there is no box. So she got us all worried and hyped up and like, oh God, we're going to have to be so inconvenienced. We're going to have to sign this contractual agreement in our minds to be inconvenienced so that we can have conviction and passion, so that we can break through inside of the box. And then she just drops this bombshell like nothing happened. We don't need to be inconvenienced anymore. I mean, that's kind of motivating, right? Sit back and relax, you know? Have that coffee, stare out that window, just chill out. The crazy violin's all gone. The box doesn't exist. So motivating. So because the box doesn't exist, right, everything is possible.
Everything is possible.
That's quite motivating, if that's true, right? Everything is possible, but you know what she's saying now is that imagine, what if God, your gods, whichever God, spirit, a higher being, creator of this world, was not partial. He's not partial to anyone. If they give her a cup. They're going to give you a cup.
What if the God that we call God, the divine, whatever your faith is, what if there's no partial? It's not going to give me a hookup and not give you one. Not going to give me an opportunity and not give you one.
Right. Okay. I mean, our entire zeitgeist right now is about privilege and inequality and trying to move forward and fight through those partials that exist fundamentally everywhere in the world for pretty much most people. You're not all getting the same cup. If you're all getting a cup, then I'm sitting here with my nice ceramic mug with a hot coffee in it. You might be there with a little tin cup and a weak tea. It's a bit tepid, and the milk is kind of only just like it's kind of on the way out. The use by date was a couple of days ago and it's not got lumps in it, but smelling a bit kind of sour. It's just passable. It'll just pass. Like, it's okay. And you're sitting there with your tepid weak tea and you're like, it's all right for you with your steaming hot cup of strong coffee. Meanwhile, there's some other guy over here with a cut crystal glass of £1,000 whiskey or a cut crystal flute of champagne, you know? And then we're both thinking, well, hang on a second. No, she can't just say imagine. I also think that's really dangerous because personally I feel like it's super unhelpful to tell everyone that they can be whatever they want to be, because it puts a lot of pressure on you apart from anything. Most people have things that hold them back in some way or another from their dream. People who achieve their dreams often sacrifice a lot of other things to get there and then may realise afterwards that it wasn't as worth it as they thought it was going to be. The fact is that no one starts out in this life with an even footing to anyone else. And so saying things like that makes it people feel like I ought to be able to, and it makes it their fault. I'm not saying you can use all the hard things that have happened to you to excuse negative behaviour or complete apathy or lack of doing anything at all. I'm not saying that, but I think it's fine. It should be acceptable to acknowledge what's been difficult and what's been a challenge, and that you might not quite get there or not get there in the same way that someone else would have to. But it gives people this feeling that they're underachieving and they're not good enough because theoretically they can be anything they want to be. And actually the odds are just stacked against them, and it is going to be harder or take them longer, or they might never quite get there. They might get somewhere better. Personally, I just feel that idea, it's all very well if everyone was genuinely starting off on the same footing, but not only is that impossible for us to ever reach a point where that's true and that's the case, we're also so far from being anywhere near that it just, you can't just tell people to imagine that they've got the cut crystal champagne flute if they're there with their tin cup of weak, slightly sour tea. It's not fair, you know, because that person's already got the champagne. This person's going to have to jump through all kinds of hoops and go on all kinds of challenging journeys to try and convert that tea into a glass of champagne or whatever it is they want to end up with. But say your ambition is to be President of the United States. You can't just imagine that there is no partial and that your great-grandfather emigrated to America and they took advantage of the gold rush, and that you've inherited from your father a property portfolio worth millions of dollars, and therefore you have the financial welly and the kind of social standing and influence to put yourself in a position where you might one day be elected for president. That's not going to be your journey, and that's not going to be your route. And I know that doesn't go for all presidents, but just, you know what I mean? Like, it's going to be a different kind of journey, and you probably would end up being a different kind of president. You never know, you might even be a better one because of the things that you learn on your journey along the way. Well, it might take you a lot longer to get there, and it might be a lot more challenging along the way. And that might not be your fault. And you might have more defeats and less successes, and you might never get there. And that's not necessarily your fault. You could have worked as hard as you possibly could and stuck to all principles and put in endless hours, and things were just set against you, whether it would be popular opinion or more fundamental issues like your wealth and social and political influence. Anyway, that's a side rant. I just think it's actually really unhelpful and counterproductive to try and convince people to imagine that there's no parity and they can just have whatever they want if they work hard enough, because people can then work incredibly hard and feel like they're getting nowhere, and it just hits them. It's so bad for their mental health and feeling of pride and self-achievement and self-worth. So to me, this is not motivating, it's damaging. But that's just my personal opinion. a personal perspective, you could completely disagree. I might be wrong. I might change my mind. And then she just says, I'm going to be on the treadmill and I'm going to keep going like Will Smith says. First of all, that's not very motivating. Just because that just sounds like a hard slog and you're just going to keep on running and keep on trying. And like I just said, it might be a destination that you're never really going to reach. Never mind the fact that a treadmill is stationary anyway and doesn't get you anywhere. But it's also like, what's the point in punishing yourself? All this self-discipline, all this hard work. I'm not saying that those things aren't incredibly useful. I'm not saying you don't have to be self-disciplined sometimes. And at some point in your life, as you grow and get older, you realize that if you do something now that may not feel easy, you might have to force yourself, but it can make your life easier in the long run. And I think that's more of just a lesson learned. It takes more energy, it takes more life, it takes more self-discipline the first time you do anything. And it is scary. And it is part of the scary journey that gets you to those pockets of heaven throughout your life. I think to make it into this almost self-flagellating punishment of hard running endlessly on the treadmill, a real laser focus on one goal, and this idea that anyone can do it. It's like you should be able to, and if you're not doing it, that's your fault. You're not trying hard enough because you were given the same cup. Imagine I get a cup, but you get a cup too. Why aren't you? What are you doing? Why aren't you drinking from your cup? Come on, don't deviate from your goal, which I also think is negative because we change and we evolve and we learn and we have new opinions and feel new different ways about things than we did at the beginning. There's a really good video by, I think it's Jani. His is about being addicted to self-help because he felt he had a really clear goal in mind for his life. And he found reading self-help very useful because it made him feel, I forget the term, but it's like a false sense of accomplishment because you think every time you read a book that it's helping you get somewhere. And it's actually just you're getting a high off that idea. He at one point realized the goal he was heading towards wasn't actually what he wanted anymore. And it all just suddenly fell apart for him. And I think that's really interesting because then, if you can't get there, if it turns out to be too difficult, if it turns out to be going against your personal nature, your circumstances, the things that truly make you happy and do give you self-love and happiness, if that goal you were headed towards actually is very counterproductive to what really was going to make you happy or what really is going to fulfill you or what really speaks to your skills and your personality, then you have to be able to evolve and say and realize that and not just bullheadedly slog on that treadmill endlessly, getting nowhere because it doesn't fit in really with who you are, but it was a dream and an idea that you had at some point. You've got to be able to jump off that treadmill and take a walk down a different road. This has gone all serious. It was just supposed to be silly. But look, having said all of that, because she also says, I believe anything is available to us. And that's the first 1 minute 20, all the stuff we've just talked about is the first 1 minute and 20 seconds of this pretty much 8-minute video. It's a lot, it's intense. It's a whole lot of words that I completely understand and make sense individually. And I do understand the point that everyone's trying to get across, like that you've got to die if you want to go to heaven and people want to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. Like I understand the analogy, but at the same time, does any of this stuff really mean anything? Is it actually helpful? Is it actually motivating? Or is it a brief feeling of motivation because of the intensity and the music and these grand ideas? But actually, when the video shuts off and your house is quiet and you've got a pile of washing up still to do or something, or some tedious administrative task that's nothing to do with your big goal, do you actually just feel like, Anyway, but at the end of this whole video, by the way, after all this pushing towards this one goal, which I think was the kind of suggestion and premise at the beginning, I skipped through to the end. It's not that exciting. To be honest, it ends in quite a mellow way, which was the opposite of what I was thinking. I was hoping for another violins and black screen. Wow, that was so impactful. That really hit me. But no, it kind of peters off with just some nice music and people doing sport. What is our motivation? Says this guy towards the end. What is our motivation to do anything if we don't love it? What is our motivation to do anything if we don't love it? Now we've got to love the thing we're doing to get to the goal because we've got to do, otherwise what's our motivation? This is supposed to be motivational and he's saying, what is our motivation if we don't love it? So a minute ago, you were getting up to go to the gym, and you don't really love it, but your goal is to become a certain way, like a certain level of fitness. You actually really hate going to the gym. you'll keep on pushing on that treadmill because you want to reach this end goal, because you feel like if you have self-discipline, then you'll love yourself, and discipline is making yourself go to the gym even though you don't want to, and measuring all your macros or whatever it is people do in fitness worlds. And then he's saying, oh, how can you be motivated if you don't love what you're doing? And then they start talking about how it's just the journey. It's the journey that matters. So if you hate going to the gym, they've got no motivation for you. You don't love it, by the way, from earlier. You don't need to be inconvenienced, don't forget that. Because we're not going to have any convictions and passions to break outside the box. We just got passions and convictions for our journey. Wait, maybe I got a bit lost just then. I think we can still have passions, right? Even though there's no box. Anyway, you got to have passion for the journey. So you probably don't want to go to the gym now because you don't love it. I'd scrap that if I was you. There's also something about vibrations. If you love you, you'll feel the good vibrations. Cool. So it's all quite like, woo. Gotta love who you're becoming, not just the goal. That's the thing. This is how it's ending. Who you're becoming. You don't have to love yourself totally right now. You have to love who you're becoming. I think that's fine. I think that's fine. I think we're all working, and like I said before, it's just learning. It's just knowledge. You try something new. It was hard the first time you did it. You try and work out if it works for you or not. If it's something that relates to you, makes sense for you, fits your skill set and your passions. We're kind of just undoing everything. This is what I don't understand. There's no clear message. There's no one clear message here. Look, you've got your cup, okay? Do with it whatever you want. If you don't like it, sure. You absolutely can upgrade it, and you will get there eventually to some kind of other better cup. And you will enjoy the journey of searching for the cup, and filling the cup with exciting new things. Maybe you'll put some kind of syrup in there. Get your hot coffee. Maybe you'll try a few different bean blends. I don't even know anymore. I don't know if that whole cup thing, I think I just went on a whole sidetrack with that, but that just annoyed me, that just imagine there's no partial, or what if there's no partial? When clearly there's partialness everywhere. So how is it helpful just to imagine there isn't one? I just kind of made myself laugh because this is so ludicrous. Anyway, whether or not I made any sense out of that whatsoever, or whether or not you just thought I was being stupid and silly and that it's actually totally motivating and all extremely obvious what is meant and that it all makes sense and I'm just overthinking things or being deliberately obtuse, you may well think that. I don't know why though, it just got me. I clearly got fired up about it, even if I went off on some tangents. I obviously am quite passionate about this kind of thing. Anyway, if this was just meaningless background entertainment and you're actually still watching me, I appreciate that. That's nice. I wouldn't like to bore anyone. And basically, thank you for watching. Cool. Bye.
Self-discipline.
You have to sign up to be inconvenienced.
I did also forget to mention, just for context, that the title of the video is Just Keep Going. Yeah, I think my interpretation of the beginning of the video was correct, but like you say, interesting how at the end it's the journey that matters. So